what we can do today. The apostle that we're talking about today in our series of 11 and a half men has three things that happened to him. One of them you might remember very well, but you remember his name, and people don't even know the Bible much will know this man because his name is Thomas, and people call him
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas. He has made his mark in history. People say that you get 5 minutes of history, 5 minutes of fame in your whole life. I don't know if that's true or not. But some people make a lot of it for bad or for good. And Thomas didn't do a lot in one situation. What he did has become famous and is listened to even today, and is an important part of our faith, actually, that we learn from him. Thomas's name means twin. That's what Thomas means. And he's also called Didymus, and Didymus means twin, only different languages. Didymus is Latin, and can you hear the idea of ditto? You know, copy? So that was what it meant, ditto, or Didymus, twin, a copy. And Thomas meant the same thing in another language. Thomas had either brother or sister, obviously. We don't know for sure, but history says that it was a sister. And apparently he lived along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and he was known to Andrew and Philip and Peter and all of those. And so they said, you know, this guy Thomas, you know, the twin. And there are about 3 or 4 sets of twins that I've known through my life. They refer to them as the twins. Culver twins. You know, Kathy is raising a couple of twins. They're her grandsons, actually. And you call them the twins because you look at them, it's hard to tell which one is which. I guess they know who they are, but I'm not sure that I can pick out just who they are. And so you talk about twins like that. We've got twins here, by the way. And so sometimes that's the way they just refer to them as the twins. Maybe it's not the best way, but that's what happened to Thomas. So Thomas will be their favorite man in the Bible since he's a twin. He was the boy twin, I guess, and maybe had a girl twin, and that worked out good. But Thomas was sort of a pessimistic fellow when you read his life. He was the guy, he wasn't always sure about it. He wanted to test it out. He wasn't really going to follow it too well, but he had quite a bit of courage, but he was sort of gloomy. He was a pessimist. A pessimist wears on his shirt this thing. It says, if you think everything is fine, you don't understand the situation. Pessimist. And somebody said, if you want to borrow money, borrow from a pessimist. They won't expect it back anyway. So that's kind of neat. You could look at it from that standpoint. But I remember reading a history where they had that old big old steamship. And Fulton said that, you know, you can heat this water up and make steam, and you can make the ship go. And there are a lot of pessimistic people say it'll never work. It can't happen. No way, not going to go. And an old pessimist guy was standing there, said in history, he said, they'll never get it to go. They'll never get it to go. Well, they spoke it up, and the steam blew out, and all of a sudden that ship started moving, and he was wrong. And then he said, they'll never get her stopped. They'll never get her stopped. A pessimist always sees the problem. And Thomas was sort of like that. He could see the problem more than he could see maybe a solution. One thing about Thomas was he was a faithful person in spite of his pessimism. He said, I'm going to stick with what I know, even though I'm not too sure how that's going to turn out. There were 3 things that were noticed in the Bible about Thomas. The first is John chapter 11. So if you turn there with me, you'll find the first thing that's mentioned about Thomas by way of anything that he did on his own or was something that was significant that he said. Jesus, in the first 10 chapters of John, had been in and out of Jerusalem, where the leaders were. And the more he was there, the more they hated him. One reason was he was very popular. The crowd listened to him because he was concerned about them. He had words that made sense, and they didn't. And they were jealous. And not only that, but Jesus started pulling the hide off of the things that were covering themselves. And he said, did you notice these Pharisees? They're not doing it right. They're kind of hypocrites. They don't like that. And so the last time Jesus went into Jerusalem, they got stones in their hands, and they were going to stone him. That's how Jews killed people back in that day by capital punishment. They just threw stones at them until they died. What a horrible death that would have been. But that's the way they did it. And then standing with their stones to kill Jesus. Jesus knew he wouldn't be stoned to death. The Bible said to be pierced hands and feet. He didn't want to die on the cross. He knew that they were going to stone him to death. But he said, well, why are you going to stone me to death? Because I've done these miracles? Oh, it's not because of the miracles. And they couldn't deny the miracles. It's because you have made yourself God. Well, Jesus said, see my works. Read your Bible. And he was indeed God in the flesh. And who else but God can walk on water? Who else but God could raise the dead and heal all these sick people? Who but God could do that? He was proving who he was, not only by miracles, but by the scripture that said he would do this and would be God in the flesh. But they finally decided to go down the rocks, I guess. And the disciples had it for a while, back to Jerusalem. And Jesus had a message in chapter 11, and that was his best friend out of the apostles. Lazarus was very sick. And the sisters, Mary and Martha, wanted Jesus to come and heal their brother. And Jesus said, I'm not going to go. This is the right thing to do. And in 4 days, Lazarus had died and was in the tomb. Now Jesus said, let's go to Lazarus. Well, that didn't look the right thing to do, but Jesus knew what he was doing. And so when Jesus announced that we are going to Bethany, which was just like a small suburb of Jerusalem, and they just been there, they're going to kill him, Thomas saw this as a very pessimistic thing. And in verse 16, Thomas said, called Didymus, well, let us also go that we may die with him. Pretty pessimistic mind. Well, he's going to go, and we shall go along, and nothing going to happen to that. This is not what we're going to do. It's just not. Did he see that maybe something good could happen? Did he see that maybe that through all of this would be a great blessing, which there was? Did he see that maybe even beyond the crucifixion of Christ, there would be a blessing? He couldn't see but the dark thing ahead, and we'll just go, and that'll be it. But he went. Isn't that good? He didn't forsake the disciples. He didn't walk on his own. He said, I need these people, and I need to be encouraged by them, but if that's the way it is, we'll just do it. He used to have a fellow in the church here, and his joke was, farmer asked another farmer, what would you do if you had $1 million? And he said, I just farm till it's all gone. He thought that was pretty funny. I'm not a farmer, so I don't know about that, but Austin thought that was the funniest joke he knew. Pessimism, well, you know, it's going to rain too much, or it's not going to rain enough. The tax is going to be too much, or the price will go down, or the bugs will get it, or whatever. It's not going to do any good anyway. And that's a pessimistic attitude that some people have about all of life. And they can see the other side, and there are people like that see the pessimistic side more than they see the good side. And so Thomas was like that. He said, well, we'll just go. And do you see that God has power? Do you see beyond the night? Do you see beyond the problem? Do you see beyond the difficulty? And beyond that, there's something good. Even Moses had his discouraging times, and when God said, we are going to feed these people, Moses said, I sure don't see that. I don't see how we're ever going to get enough food to feed these Israelites. They're hungry folks. And there's 2 million of them anyway. What are we going to do? And the Lord said, I never knew that my hand was short. I never knew that I couldn't reach clear down to earth and do something. God, I've never known a limitation. God's never been pessimistic in his whole life in that sense, because he can do all things beyond what we ask or think. And the Lord said, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to send them bread every morning, called manna. And it's going to come down, and they're going to gather, they're going to live on that as long as they're in the wilderness. And Moses couldn't see it. He thought, well, here we are. He had a little that spirit of the Israelites, you know. They got in the wilderness and said, I guess we're just all going to perish here. I don't know why we even left in the first place. At least we had a pot of food over there, you know, one of those big old melting pots with all the stew in it. We could eat stew. Now here we are, we have nothing. They couldn't see God. Provided them the land of milk and honey that God had promised. And sometimes you might be that way too. I'd like to have you think, can you see beyond the problem? Can you see God beyond the difficulty? Can you see the answer of God beyond what looks like impossibility? Because God doesn't know that word. And the Bible proves that God can do what he wants to do and what he needs to do and what we can't see. So they went to see Lazarus. How'd that turn out? Did Jesus die in Bethany? No. They went to the tomb, and Lazarus had been buried for 4 days, and Jesus said, roll away the stone. And they rolled away the stone, and Jesus said, Lazarus, come out of there. And the man who had been buried and all tied up in those linen cloth that they used back in that day stumbled out of the grave after 4 days, and Jesus said, loose him and let him go. And Lazarus lived many, many years after that. A testimony to the fact that God can do what you might think he can. And poor Thomas might have to say, you know, when I walked to that tomb, I didn't see that. I don't see what God's going to do. I just thought that's the end of it. We're just going to kind of perish here. The great gospel thing we've heard is just going to die out. He said, I have no idea what God could do through Jesus, and he did it. In the 14th chapter of John, we have the second thing that happened to Thomas. They had a wonderful meal together called the Last Supper. Back in those days, every Jew at this particular time, usually in March usually, would take a lamb, a whole little lamb, and roast the whole thing, like you might roast a turkey. And they would not ever break a bone of this whole lamb. Even when they slaughtered it, it was supposed to be whole. And they would roast this lamb, and they would have some bitter herbs along with it, and a few other things. And they were to think about when their forefathers lived and dwelt in the wilderness. And even before that, when they were in Egypt. And how that one night God came down and looked over the whole land, and if they had put blood on the doorpost and on the top, they lived. And so, hundreds of them. In fact, when you got the wilderness, there were 600,000 firstborn people, or something like that, a great number of firstborn people anyway, and they had survived through the blood on the door. Now, in other words, I want you to remember that. I want you to remember what I've done and take this whole land. He didn't tell them for a while, but the lamb represented Jesus, who was given a whole sacrifice for us. And though he was on the cross, and though they put a spear in his side, in the whole process, not one bone was broken. We got beat, tormented, crown of thorns crushed in his head, all the things that happened, not one single bone was broken. That was the prediction of the Old Testament. And it was the example of the Lamb. And Jesus had the same thing happen to him. A fulfillment of God's protection of him, even in his death, that he would fulfill this Lamb prophecy, our Savior, dying as the Lamb sacrifice. Well, they ate that meal. And then Jesus said, I want to tell you something. He started in chapter 14 of John, and is a chapter and a verse you might know. You believe in God, he says. So believe in me. These Jews had a great faith in God, but they were learning about Jesus. He was kind of a new person on the block to them. You believe in God? Believe what God has done? I'm God in the flesh. Now you represent, I want you to represent that in your faith. And he mentioned that. He went through that. And he said, in my Father's house are many mansions. I'm going to go away. I'm going to prepare a place for you. Then I'm going to come again someday. When I come again, I'll take you to where I've prepared this place. And you'll always be with me. Now, Thomas is trying to figure this out. He's going somewhere, and we're supposed to get there somehow, and he just couldn't quite fathom that. And so in verse 5, Thomas said, Lord, we know not where you are going, and how can we know the way? Pretty pessimistic. I don't have any idea what you're talking about. How can we get there? I don't know. Well, where do you think the Father's house is? That be in Caesarea, Antioch? Would you think the Father's house would be heaven? Wouldn't you think that would be a normal way to understand that? That I'm talking about heaven, I'm going to go away to heaven, prepare a place, and you'll forever and ever live with me in heaven. Wouldn't that be a wonderful prophecy and promise? We think of that today, but poor Thomas, he's sitting there. I don't think that'll work. I don't think that's going to come to pass. I don't see anything about that. And he just really threw the whole thing out. Lord, we don't know where you're going. We don't know where the road is. And Jesus made a statement. I am the way. I'm the truth. And I'm the life. That's how you get to the Father. Through me. Oh, well, I guess he figured that out eventually. And Thomas was able to see beyond that. But the 20th chapter of John is where he makes his mark in history more than any other place. Jesus died on the cross, as we all know very well. The disciples, for the most part, ran away, thinking that they would probably be killed as well. John stayed there, and he was there witnessing the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, but Thomas didn't really be there. Then they kind of gathered together in this one upper room locked the door so they couldn't be arrested, and kind of sat around and said, what do you think? You kind of see how terrible it would be. And so that was on Friday when Jesus died, and on Sunday they were still gathered in that upper room. And Jesus walked right through the door that was locked, and he said, peace, I'm here. Oh, it must be a ghost. He said, I'm not a ghost, it's real. I, who have been your Savior and friend and guide, died and rose again. It's me. See? And they looked at the nail wounds and all, and they believed. He said, you have things to eat? They said, we've got some fish. So he ate that. See, I can eat. I'm not a spirit. I've rid of the resurrected Christ. Well, Judas had hanged himself already, so that made one less. And Thomas wasn't even there for some reason. We don't know why. And so Jesus left in a little bit, and they told Thomas a little while later, we've seen Christ. The women have seen Christ. Peter and John have seen Christ. All of us have seen Christ. And Thomas did not believe that. Thomas was a doubter. A little pessimistic about the whole thing, and that's not bad. You'll notice here Jesus talked about it in the Scripture. So, notice verse 24 as we begin this part of the Scripture. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples therefore said, we've seen the Lord. But he said, except I see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger in the print of the nails, and thrust my hand in his side, I will not believe. I've got to have a hands-on touching thing. I've got to know for sure. And after 8 days again, the disciples were again, and Thomas was with them. Then came Jesus, the door being shut, and stood in the midst, and said, peace be unto you. And he hadn't been seeing them, or nobody talked to him, but being God, he knew it was in their heart. He said, Thomas, reach thither thy finger. Behold my hands, and reach thither thy hand, and thrust it into my side. And be not faithless, but believing. I don't know if he did or not. I guess he did. Doesn't tell us what he did. But he made a statement, my Lord and my God. And in Greek it's even more interesting, the Lord of me and the God of me is the way it's worded in Greek. That's even more personal. You are my everything because I understand you are the dead and now living Christ who's overcome that enemy, will overcome every enemy, including my own enemies. And Lord, you've become my God, the one I worship. And God, and Jesus, God accepted that. He touched it. He had a feeling. Now there are people that have been like that. I've got to really know, and that's not bad. Because it makes us realize that what we know in Scripture can be verified. Everybody in the Bible just said, yeah, we believe we didn't touch it, we didn't see him, or anything like that. I have a book put out by Deseret News in Salt Lake City. And there's a group that tell us that there were golden plates that were buried under a hill, and somebody copied those off, and then the angel came and got the golden plates, and nobody saw them but 6 people. And that's my story. Well, this book tells about that, and it's part of the group that believes that. And he said, they talked to the witnesses, and they said, well, did you see the golden plates? And they said, well, we saw them by faith. No, I mean, did you lay your hands on the golden plates? Well, no, he said that the guy was in charge of it out in the wilderness and told us to pray. And let me tell you something. If I suggest golden plates, you close your eyes, can you see golden plates? Can you see it? Imagination? I've got imagination. Did you really see the golden plates? No, but you had something in your mind. Is that verifying anything? Of course not. But I like the fact that the Bible can have a hands-on deal. I touched Jesus. I actually put my hand where the nail was, where the spear was. I've actually touched that. As gross as it might seem to you, I have hands-on experience that Christ is right. And many other things you can touch by way of Bible events and Bible places, you know the Bible is true. So Thomas said, I believe. And Jesus said to him, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those that have not seen, and yet have believed. That's you. You can't reproduce Jesus' life any more than Lincoln's life or Washington's life. He lived and died, went to heaven, and that's history. But how do we know what happened? Well, because of people that touched him and saw him and verified the fact that that's who Jesus was and what he did, and what he said was accurate, and we believe that because of their testimony. People that have really researched this have found that to be so. After the Civil War, you may have heard the story before, Lew Wallace was a general, and when he left the war, Robert Ingersoll, who was an outstanding atheist of his time, challenged him, who was a great writer, Lew Wallace was, to write a book and get rid of Christianity once and for all. Lew Wallace was an atheist too, and so was Ingersoll. So he said, I would like to do that. They're riding on the train, and they're talking about doing this. And so Lew Wallace thought, well, maybe what I ought to do before I start, put the Bible down is at least research it. Maybe I'll read it before you guess it. That'd be a good thing. Maybe it'd be a good idea to travel to Palestine, maybe, and look it over and see where all the mistakes are. And you know what happened in that story. Lew Wallace, the more he researched it, the more he studied it, the more he was convinced the Bible was right, and wrote a book called Ben-Hur, which has become a bestseller of all time, one of the best of all. And he wrote a novel depicting the Christ and what he did to the family of Ben-Hur. It was a book pro-Christ, because when he studied it out, it was true. Lee Strobel was an editor or maybe a reporter, I should say, for the Chicago newspaper. And he, like a reporter, was always trying to find what was wrong, where's the other angle. And he'd seen so many things, he was skeptical of everything, very pessimistic. Then his wife became a Christian. He couldn't figure that out. Christianity was stupid. Nothing to it. I mean, it's just, imaginary. And he had all kinds of things. He was very doubtful about the whole thing. But he kind of watched it. In fact, it made a better wife out of her than she was before. He kind of liked that. And she wasn't pushing, she just trying to explain to him what made her faith, what it was. And so Lee Strobel began to examine it, began to study into it, and ask all the hard questions about Jesus, the resurrection and all. Well, the short story is that, as you know, he has written half a dozen books on the case for creation, the case for faith, the case for Jesus, the case for Christianity. All of this, and his study saying, it is true, it is right, and he studied with the best of minds and examined it, and the evidence is overwhelming. I've touched it, and Jesus is my Lord, and he is my God. So whatever happened to Thomas? Well, we don't know in Scripture. We always end with what we find in history. And Thomas went clear into Babylon for many years and went clear to India, which is about as far as you could go in the Roman Empire. And he was telling somebody about a great empire called the kingdom, the spiritual kingdom. And according to one story, they gave him some money. They said, so we can build this kingdom that you're talking about. But he took his money and gave it to the poor, people who were in need. He was talking about a spiritual kingdom, and when the king found out about that, he was very angry. What happened to my money? He said, I put it in the kingdom that I was telling you about. Well, about to kill him, but the brother of the king had a dream, and he dreamed about this beautiful palace above in heaven somewhere and saved his life. But he kept on preaching, and some of the people in India, because you see, Hinduism is ancient. It goes way, way back. We can't even figure out when it started. It's so old. But there was jealousy and there was hatred toward Thomas because people were turning from Hinduism to a faith in Christ. So one of the Brahmins took a lance, a spear, and jabbed it through him to his death. That's what history says. It's interesting that he touched the wound of Jesus, and that's how he died. There's something that tied that together. I don't know. I just know this. That Jesus died on the cross for us. And Jesus asked you to give your life to him, no matter what it may cost. And I guess that's only fair, isn't it? If he had come all the way to heaven, to earth, to die for us, so he could take us back to heaven, wouldn't it be right that we give him the little brief thing we call life so we could be with him forever? Wouldn't that make sense to you? It might would be to me. And he asked us to follow him and be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Do what he says, follow him as he asks us to do it. And the song that we have at the end, we sung it before because each time we sing it, another disciple said, I'm going to follow Jesus. And they would go all over the world to tell his message. The message that Jesus had for them. He said, it's not just for you. He gave them a great commission. Go into all the world and tell every creature. Tell them about what I've told you. Baptize them in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And teach them the rest of this. And I'll be with you forever. And Thomas said, I don't care if I get lance. I'm going to follow you. It's the best way to live. And still is. I decided to follow Jesus, he said. I hope you decide the same thing. And we'll do that as we sing this song, 376. I have decided